Roll for Crit presents How to Play Clank in 5 minutes or less or more. Clank is the deck-building board game of fantasy, greed, and making too much noise, designed by Paul Dennen and published by Direwolf Digital and Renegade Game Studios. In Clank, you're trying to infiltrate Dragon Keep to steal an artifact and escape without being destroyed by a dragon. Whoever has the most points from cards, artifacts, and other tokens at the end of the game wins. Each player begins with an identical starting deck, a figure to place in the starting space of the board, and a whole bunch of cubes in their color. Each player also has a health track associated with their color on the board. Anytime you would receive damage, one of your cubes is placed on this track. If your entire track gets filled up, you're eliminated from the game, so try not to let that happen. In addition to the board, the playing field will also contain a main deck of cards, from which a lineup of 6 will be available at the start of each turn. These could be allies to add to your deck or enemies to fight. These reserve piles contain multiple copies of the same cards which are always available in addition to that lineup of 6, as is the Goblin, which can be fought multiple times even in the same turn. On your turn, you'll draw a hand of 5 cards from your deck. Then you must play all of your cards in any order you want. Most cards have an effect of some kind in addition to special icons. The boot icon represents movement. You can use boots to move your figure from one space into any connected space across one of these lines on the board. If a line has a symbol with 2 footprints on it, that means you'll need to spend 2 boots to move across it. The sword icon represents your attack power. If you see a connecting line with the symbol of a monster on the board, then moving across it will deal you 1 damage, unless you spend a sword to negate it. You can also use swords to take on the goblin or other enemies in the card lineup. If you've generated enough sword points on your turn to match the required number printed on the bottom of that card, you've successfully defeated it. Read the card to discover its rewards. The final card icon is skill points. You use skill points to purchase new cards from the lineup and add them to your deck. If you have enough skill points to match the cost of a card printed in the lower right corner, you can take it and place it in your discard pile. Anytime your deck runs out, you reshuffle your discard pile to form a new one, so these cards will show up on a future turn. If a card has an acquire effect, that occurs once as soon as you gain it. There are also purple device cards in the lineup which aren't added to your deck. Instead, simply follow their instructions when purchased and discard them. If any of your cards say Clank on them, you generate 1 or more Clank according to the card's instructions. Each time you generate Clank, you add 1 cube from your supply to the Clank section of the board. This will come into play later on when the dragon attacks. But if a card says minus Clank on it, you can use that to remove or prevent Clank up to that amount for that turn. But let's get back to the board. Different board spaces could have different features or effects. In addition to the footprint and monster icons we discussed earlier, you might also see a lock, which means you can't take that path. If you end up in a crystal cave room, you'll have to end your movement there for that turn. Rooms with a heart icon let you heal 1 damage by removing a cube to your supply. If you're on a space with a small or large question mark token, those are minor and major secrets respectively. After moving into that space, you can flip 1 token there to discover its effects. It could be an immediate one-time effect or something you get to keep for later. If you're in a market space, you can use gold to purchase something from the market. Throughout the game, you'll generate gold from various cards or tokens. Each item in the market costs 7 gold. Keys allow you to travel through locked paths, the backpack lets you hold an extra artifact, and the crown is simply worth points. A player can only buy 1 of each item type. The most important features on the board are artifact tokens, each marked with a different point value. These are the most valuable treasures available, and taking one could start to trigger the game's end. If you move into a space with an artifact, you may take it. However, you can only have 1 artifact and there are no takebacks, so make sure it's the one you want. If you possess one of these artifacts and you then make your way back to the start of the castle, you've successfully escaped without the dragon finding you. You get an additional 20 points from a mastery token. Once you've played all of your cards, your turn ends. Discard them to your discard pile and draw a new hand, reshuffling your deck if necessary. Any resources you had left over are lost. Then flip out new cards from the main deck to replace any that you purchased or fought during your turn. If any of these cards have an arrive effect, those take place as soon as they are revealed. If any of the cards that you flipped out contain a dragon symbol, then the dragon is attacking. First, collect all the cubes on the Clank space of the board and add them to the dragon bag. Then you'll randomly draw a number of cubes from the bag and place them on the table. How many cubes you draw depends on what level of the rage track the dragon is currently located on. The dragon begins at the bottom, but every time someone takes an artifact or finds a minor secret token with a dragon egg on it, it will cause the dragon to move up a level, adding more cubes each time. You also draw more cubes if there are any danger effect cards currently in the lineup. If any of the cubes drawn from the bag are in a player color, those cubes are immediately moved to that player's health track as damage. There are also black cubes in the bag which have no effect. However, they are removed from the game after being drawn, so they won't protect you forever. As soon as one player gets out with an artifact or is eliminated, they're removed from the game. Now, instead of taking a normal turn, they'll place their figure on the leftmost space of the track at the top of the board. On subsequent turns, they'll move the figure forward one space. On the second through fourth of these turns, a dragon attack takes place, each one forcing you to draw more cubes, in addition to the dragon's current level requirements. If they reach the fifth space, everyone still inside gets knocked out and the game ends. Once either this happens or everyone successfully escapes, all players count up their points. If you manage to get an artifact and you either escaped or at least made it to the upper level of the dungeon, you get to count all your points. If you don't have an artifact or you're still in the depths when the game ends, your points don't matter. You lost. Points come from the total value of your artifact, loot you've found, gold you've accumulated, and points from the cards in your deck. Whoever has the most wins. In conclusion, move, fight, steal, keep quiet. That's Clank in a nutshell. Did you get all that?